Namo Guru Be Namo Buddhaya Namo Dharamaya Namo Sanghaya Namo Guru Be Namo Buddhaya Namo Dharamaya Namo Sanghaya Namo Guru Be Namo Buddhaya Namo Dharamaya Namo Sanghaya Kan de la ye guen ye do ga ne ra ga jo za bon de jo de de che ye ya bo ge ye lo zan zha se da je ba ne de je zo de ye na ga se de be de che ze la ma ye be zo ga ta lo de be se na xie zhou du de ma ye jie ye ya zhou zo xie jie zhou gu jia be lo zhe du ge zang na be ye yo le xie ta be be ye la me ze be gu po de de be de la cha ze ye wo je ye na zo me do da tie xian do be na ze je ja zo we sha ye zhe che jian ya zo de se na xian zhou jie la jie ba ka jian do me de ne sa ba ye liu nga ye ye mi ga jie jie Kye ba do ba so Anye ne je ba da be o so so nye me de ma de do la che ye ba de zhou de ye jie gu bo Yeah. Sanje Jendo Mede Viwa Ye Drogo Nanda Cheba Jo Ye Dan Guru Rana Mande Laga Niyanda
Sanje
Chedan Zaje Jodan Lo Janju Bando Dame Jambu Je Dagi Chuju Jibe Sonam Je Rola Benje Sanje Droba Sho
Sanje
Chedan Zaje Jodan Lo Janju Bando Dame Jambu Je Dagi Chuju Jibe Sonam Rola Benje Sanje Droba Sho Chedan Zaje Jodan Lo Janju Bando Dame Jambu Je Dagi Chuju Jibe Sonam Je Rola Benje Sanje Droba Sho
Kange tu de nyere so ne ta wa dang je bang ge che ra tam be chu ne tong kwa tam de la cha de lo kwa tam de la cha de lo ga da de la cha de lo kwa tam de la wa cha de lo kwa tam de la cha de lo nem de la cha de lo 오야 담마긴 수진 탐지에 통도 에네 탑잘라나 매봐 양다고 소리 산게지 공방을 보지 진행자 탑으로 자 그 탑으로 잡이 실도 에네 비게지 자외 송랍 군지 내뒤봐 산적 람링 잠모 세년배 꿀롱 군주지는 만남 세답으로 휴스
In the beginning, I would like to advise all of ourselves to take a moment and cultivate the bodhicitta motivation or the altruistic motivation, seeking complete enlightenment for the sake of all other sentient beings. And with that kind of motivation, we should participate in this Lamdim teaching, teaching on stages of the path to enlightenment that brings together all the essential points of practice.
Oh yeah. That's in just some bit you come in around to that. Lambling chemo any big Jiri any big quiet dong and sampa. Chira so dong and sampa ni. That Jiri quiet dong and sampa telaya and to get J sambata. Dong and talk samba, dong and some samba, send it as Saji Tamdua. Yen and it that dong and J sampa katu. Is
So we are back to volume number 1 in English translation of this great treatise on the state of the path to enlightenment. And our in the main outline is contemplating the suffering of samsara or cyclic existence. And we do this under 2 main subpoints: contemplating the generic suffering or the general suffering of samsara, cyclic existence, and contemplating the particular or the specific kind of suffering in samsara. So we have been talking about the general types of suffering in samsara, and again, different classifications are provided. One is we talk about 8 types of suffering in samsara, or the 3 types of suffering in samsara, or the 6 types of suffering in samsara. So we have been dealing with 8 different types of suffering or pain in samsara.
that in a garanto Masim Jenge to check with neck up to Tunga to Chisarache. Tang and check with Tunga or Simchenti any Bama, 7 neck to Nasin Yorvata, 10 neck of Nasin Yor, take a learning that and that. Niene ma tsebe tunge ti imata. Karsung tu sana de shabi siro na. Karsen tu sana de se doa. Niene tsebe tsetans. Shiri tu tsebe tses. Tunge yans. Tati ma niene tseba tsema takbata. Ma shiri tu ma tonsi bi tunge yans. Ta lopting le ma sung du yares. Tunge chik. Tunge ke namrang rabu chik lopting le sung yares. Tsebe nega ngasi tu bala ta. Shibatsin Yorba, Shiba, Hunu, Tarma, Tayu, Gango, Shivita, or Tingati, Tevenek of Nasiri. Or teacher and all of drink did Macane said the Tenny Rimji. Timarti Javanis, Theatarsi, Tenela, Chichik Tati, say one dance, one the mola saw the metro kind pass, that is my hero the Yagris. Oh. Tunge Yavrachebe, number Toma. Number Toa, some more Nitantine. Nitanti, Nanga, Nejan Devi, Lu Tenny, and if near Lombe Tivita, to the Sierra, when a Lembe Tivi, Tunge, Sangdembe. And Sylvia no, but Sylvia never to the mummy shake but terror. Oh, Jula took by Hindu, one Tinge. Pong she sung sherta, the neck of guitar, Tramargeta, 7 neck of Kitunga in Bari. Setanta, take the Hitaki, Tikarta, Samlema, take the dog, Tondai, my Hig Dula, take the Mixi, Hugoas came into the Sebu Hurita, the Korean, Sebu Hibu in the Sonta, Mixi Hugoas came, maybe. The machine aircraft Tonda, some my Hig you but Ready in a 30 security, and again, table my neck up to any Shiba Hunu. Tarmata, you can go see it, can go the date, can go the Tarmatan, Tema tablet in the young Kayadi Karetana, the Yungi Yaris. Naranto Matovri Matochilla, Tema Tagwe Tagaran, can go get piggy, 10 days to Trutare. Can go 10 days to Trumne, Naronki, any piggy, Machine Bale, Rimdi, Chimber Madochi, 10 days to Trutare. Naranki Shaya Gita can go double check, go cover that. Tonga do I saw it in the can go tea that Jiden Yondra Gango the Karsavan Jiden Gangansuki, Musums Batoya in the Gango to Rabati, Shunaka the Peng Marwa, Dansak Marwaya, ready in a tended the troops in Barre. Gave it 10 days in a Tematatu troop, Kalikali troop, a shiv 10 days in a Kari unit paper, and Yambo troops. Today is.
So we are in volume number 1 of English translation on page 274 at the bottom of the page. We have talked about the conditions inside mother's womb, and so what kind of discomforts we had while we were going through the fetal development stages, and so all of that we already talked about. And so continuing our conversation from there is there's also a lot of pain at the time of birth or delivery, and then once we are delivered, well, now we gotta live, hopefully, and so we can talk about different stages we have to go through. There's the infant stage, maybe there's the toddler stage, then there is the teenagers, then there is the youth, maybe the young adults, and then at the end comes this what we call old age. Okay, and so normally, when we think of somebody being old, politically correct is this being senior, okay, citizen. That's something visible, and as Khensur himself says, somebody like me, himself, that everybody can see he's old, or somebody with a gray hair, that would be me, translator. So that stage is something visible, But actually, what we really don't realize or think about is that the aging starts from the second moment of our birth, because we thought like, well, until we hit the end of the life, then there is no aging. As a matter of fact, right, aging has to start from somewhere. It's not like it comes overnight, dawns upon us. Like, oh my God, now I'm old, right? I mean, it is a process, but the process starts right from the second moment of the birth.
What I call Tangbe any big Lobdingi, the Mastic song, but the Shamte Matidua. I hear songs all the 60 Tondani at the Tati Matir Muchigi, and 60 say here of the Jongiari Tati, condition to Senate. And Pigay near the Jukba, seen that not in the Yara, near Jukan, Transari Macadin of Yaris, but in the Tenju Manguna, Transha, teacups in the Carisian to Senna, near Julie any. Tine day and lot and Yinglat and Tam J. Jenny, Jingy Nesu, Rubal Humber. Get what? Misevi ting your nest. Mona animpicated with Tony Hindu, Jexo Roma. Shisatan, that was you tarry back into a Shisat, Shisate, Jinja, Combata, Combata, Timmy Himbala, Timmy Himbe, Timata, Trata, Susella, Tato, Zabi, my Coron. One is legend number member. Give long guinea, tend to dance, die, around to my give neck up that long around to long yard, that's long yard in around all. Coviana long started the Tonga Jun, he told me to get that Tonga Lagating, missing now Lagating, started Tonga, he told you. Tea Nani Tang any pig, Sanendra, long Sanendra. Talung of the church getting around Nani, to say out of the Marshangela so what don't do it long cigar to say tell her. Can you secret? Take it them majula so get long tell her, can you get long cigarette? Oh, yeah, then it tapped long say long cangelpa, look at Chatamil, chatting it. Yam neck long. I'll something long say at the task. So, much say, I get a share at the task, something long. Take any PhD, you order the chair machine, together. What he took it, how long it took it, Tanguya, Kaloche, there you want to live, meet it. That near long it took any mango, Holo, race on door. The mother Shavas Kida, Chuka came into several Asia. And got you to dinner like what you come near, Revere, Tungo Niki, 다도 세린티 용수 세신 동해지 자와 전부 동해지 자와 전부 저보 미세바 얘도 뭐 다기 류지야라 마서바타부 나란토 마스도비나 마사바타부티 이니게 차와다 비게 게 여러 만년부터 민 때다 여러 마사바타부 세르첸 탐제 ngom버 주베 류지 애니 ngom버 탐제니 류지 옹보 탐제니 차스르다 비게 디디 옹보가가 되디 여다 옹보 군당 미치나 옹보 멘게 미 여러 봐 옹보 나웨 옹보 멘게 잡고 미게 옹보 멘게 된대 여러 저다 옹보 군당 잡고 지비나 옹보 탐제니 차스르도데 옹보 탐제는 녜지 때만 신도 쪽에는 류요 공배 초단 담바타 아니 닝네 감데스다 감보레인도 여러봐 아니 도바단 냐랑에 미세버는 내가 대 교단 젠지 온기 레지 교단 젠지 온기 레지 남브라면 발이 제베 롱기 포와다 아니 까까와 따라 시식과 때 종오시다 딘데 마마 녜네 만중당들이 다디 대세부시다리 디 토다디 세부시다리 교자고야 민두 어도도 저부 쟤는 되니까 남식절라 고랑기다 나란도 용라기 녜지 시장도 쟤는 다와고 어쭈든데 빼진을 근데 해기 와래 디 잡았다 자요 말은 다와 제일 땡게 여는 다와야 다와 배 주지 중니에 여디나 용라 온디 제비네 다중오 진짜 마연데 아니 롱기 마제네 망고 마투지 되지 않는데 진 제브리스 어딘데 진 종오세서다 망에데 마테당 팀바래.
So Khensur Rinpoche has read between page 274 and 275. At the bottom of page 274, we have this quote from great Indian master Chandra Gomin's letter to a student. And then that quote is followed by another quote from what we call entering in the womb of the mother, sutra, which is translated here as descent into the womb sutra. So he thinks, these quotes are really self-explanatory, very clearly laid out, so he doesn't feel he need to explain much here. So in that regard, let me read the first quote and then some of the explanations he has given. Translate that. Chandra Gomin states, this is at the time of the birth. It is crushed slowly like sesame seeds in an oil press, and then somehow it is born. Nonetheless, those who do not lose their lives immediately must settle for pain, because some die, not as fortunate as we are. The body that dwelled and grew in that filth is smeared with the womb slime and has an unbearably foul smell. So we talked quite a lot about, how being in mother's womb, we stayed with, all that kind of smell for a long time. Memory is lost upon being inflicted with such torment, which is like having an inflamed boil burst or being on the verge of vomiting. Okay, so the description is really not appetizing in any sense, and then a similar kind of things are described in the descent into the womb sutra. So which is Khensur thinks, when you read it, you can understand it. There's not something that's difficult to understand. But some of the things he explained is that at the time of the birth, what happens is because our body consists of what we call energy winds or the chi, or the Tibetan term is called lung, which is translated as winds or energies or subtle energies, whatever translation. And there are many kinds of energies or the winds, but we usually talk about 5 major types of wind. Is a very kind of a, how should I say, rough translation of the Tibetan word lung. So we talk about, for example, descending energy, ascending energy of the wind, and then equalizing one, and then the pervasive energy, and then the life-sustaining energy. So these are really, the 5 major types of wind energy, if you will. Yeah, my first footnote, very much talked about in Tibetan medical science. And so what happens at the time of the birth, what we call the downward, moving wind, literal translation, or the descending wind, and it flips the child inside the mother's womb, and normally the child's head would come out first, and then the body. So that wind pushes the baby downward, and that's how baby is delivered. And so normally, in the text is described that a child stays in mother's womb for about 9 months and 10 days. Not in every case. Some are born prematurely. Some stay a little too long. Are not yet ready to come out even after that. So all of those variations are there. So at the time of the birth, it's as if you're really squeezed through that birth canal and deliver. So that's not really a lot of fun, to say the least. A lot of pain involved in that.
딘종어 단중단 가르사가 미트만 중단 용어 세야티라바다 다세부터가 대 기타 효과야 잠도 용어제 제 동마 총마타도 다치르도 마테마타도 룽게 애니페게 말라 티타부 레바 따르니 둥에 요아레 다치르 말룡도 룽포 수불라 룽데포 애니페게 말라 티타부 레바 따부르 애니페게 암 락바다 그다 고용하란도 그 간잠잠지 참거려 봤다 바바이 나인다 가리나 아마이 나인다 되게 이제나 이제 간잠부터 보지 증조가 지금 요아래때 보디를 토윤도 애니 피게지 레디 잡았다고 인식이었다 히라 그게 동에 용도 세레 동에제 도와 타고 동에제 도와 전부 자기 좁은 세배 기둥 명화 용왕 용로체 다티 콘디 헤베게 럽딩게 책자다게 이니피게 통다디 휴브레스게 왔다 예송신 다 그래서잖아 발랑게 빠빠 휴발라 소자 현지 소바탄 다 발랑게 빠빠들 보지 마 휴베이나 마시고는 마시기 때문에 휴브지게 타게도 되어 봐 대안이 소자 현지 빠빠 휴만도 소자 현지 소바탄 아니 비게 나다타비정 내리기 니비게 나탄르부지 셈나 간도분 잡지 다 냐마냐마이나 간도분 잡지 가도기 부베 나로리지 제네싱 쓰기리 다디 제네싱 스토아티 쓰기리디 히라두자 쓰기리 어디 송도한테 디 팅하이나 나타만고 히라 요사레 나다페 내리 휴지게 망보요아리 디 tun돌라 나다티 제네싱 튼돌 대담지 할래야지 뜨기 위해서 말이 님만 드리리 대단한테 됐어 대전 류라 짜게 이네 잡아 따르나 동네 잡고 녀마 힘도 대전 류싱이 되라 저기 짜라고 저 가서 다마지 지금 여러 번 짝해서 해야 되는데 근데 짝해 짜 근데 이네 류를 잡아나 힘기 동네 잡고 녀마 대신도 어서게 녀마
Towards the bottom of page 275, there is a summary conclusion where it says that as described in Chandra Gomin's letter to a student or descent into womb sutra. So at the time of the birth, right, there is so much pain involved, and once it's delivered, a baby, although we try to handle the baby delicately, we try to grab the child with them, I don't know, how should I say, very fine piece of cloth or something. But from child's perspective, whatever way we handle it, it's so much pain. It's not enjoyable touch when we try to hold the child in our arms and things like that. And so the description given is kind of very, painful here, as it is said. It is as if, that you are kind of a skinned live. The example given here is that of a flayed cow. If we are skinned live, just imagine that. For me, even to say it just gives me so much pain. For just being done to me. That's the translator. Or a leper whose lesions are stuck with a whip. The leper is a case where in those olden days, one of the dreadful sicknesses people talk about leprosy. You're the lepers and you have all this crazy thing. Now, Khensur says that these days there are many, worse kind of sickness here. So maybe that's nothing, perhaps. So the child, even if we try to kind of, very lovingly and delicately try to hold the child, as both mom and dad are so excited and happy, but from child's perspective, because it's so delicate that even our soft touch is really not a happy touch for the child. Okay.
What is it? That's the matter. Said the young, they sung the what? The matter, the bundle long but so that about the keep the Wachimutoni, bounds to long but so by any PhD. That's the Wachimus here about the bundle long but tongue. Carson do that. The matter, the bundle long but so down. Any tower the trauma reg but naya to me any trap to me any. 동해 작바 저 메세바 이도 명와 영원주로세 다티 때 맞아 갈수다 내 제기라 같이다한테 내 제기리 부디 동해 영록디 부디 마도 아주 단 제타라 같이다 제타라 봐 데리세 다 동해 제지 낭내 다 동해 제요 봐 동해 제요 봐 동해 제기 낭내 아니 가르쳐서 가르쳐 그랬잖아 디센도와 동해 제진나니 땅 당보대다 타만디 내처를 꿈꾸어야 나라시에바다 소소르도비 시랍지 야네 양도 제데 꿈바를 자오 싫다 어다 동해 어다 알티치다.
So even when a lucky child is born very healthy with all the sense faculties intact, and parents, lovingly kind of, hold the child. But, these different temperatures, the heat and the cold, that the child gets is actually very discomforting to the child. Because we are talking from child's perspective. None of us really remember that at all, So we are not saying like how much we love the child. We're saying, what is that, from child's perspective. So it is actually very, painful. So we... Out of these 8 different types of suffering that we talk about, it is said that the first suffering and the last one in this list of 8, are the 2 that we should pay more attention to, we should reflect upon very deeply and meditate on. No.
Oh, 제타다 trouble. 제타 동에 제기날에 단 제비 동에 쓰기도 제비 동에 다 아니 비게 딱 타마스도 발라 년년지 풍부 첨부될 때는 비게 대지기 롤러피게 간용와 통통으로 붙이 막 금효스기 아니다. 그래서는 다 나란도기 NPK 동해디 망고 시에서 동해 그 건나도 망고 시고 시에버리 임베 있나야 두루 탐제디 NPK 당한테 제비 거기에 나중에서 나도 제사리 야야리도 다 때도 좀 봤어 봐 제사리 이마야 건나도니 동해 망고 시해야 돼 자지지 그래서는 동해생이 돼 NPK 다 규매받아 깨매받아 밑에 비줄이 정확한데 말이 있으니 숨겨야리 어떠지?
So as stated here that from this list of 8 types of suffering, we should pay more attention to the first suffering and the last one. The first suffering is the suffering of birth or related, kind of suffering. And, in our meditation and contemplation, if we can conjure in our mind as clearly as we can all those conditions we talked about, as if we can really feel the pain, over and again, then that will start to make more sense in the sense that we really don't want to be in the same kind of situation over and again, right? And of course, we understand that, really none of us really remembers what it was like in the womb of the mother, all the conditions that was talked about, right, in this text. This is like, okay, I don't know. Okay, I don't remember anything. Or even at the time of the birth, But based upon this kind of descriptions and kind of narratives, if you will, if you can reflect deeply on these things, you'll start to make more sense. And you can provide us deeper insight into the nature of things. Yeah? For example, any kind of suffering or pain does not arise without causes and conditions. Well, that's a good lesson. Suffering also does not arise from discordant causes and conditions as well. So there are a lot of really, I could say, deeper insights we can draw from reflecting on this kind of suffering. If there has been so much suffering inside the womb of the mother at the time of the birth, even after the birth, where does all this suffering come from? Who, we can't say who created them in Buddhism, but what is the storyline here? Well, the storyline is they couldn't have come without causes and conditions. Yes. But they couldn't have come even from what we call disagreeable or discordant causes and conditions. They must come from, right, concordant causes and conditions. They couldn't come from a single cause as well. So all of those really deeper insights could be derived from such a reflection.
고안에 제약이 나는 그 내용이 제약이 준다부터 디제벤디 디제베처럼 디제스는 된대가 송 여러 번 단도 리그를 받던도 드디어 발라 단 년인지 제 준요모 레드요모 온게 중요한데 제완디 제베 온게 다드네 디제스도 내년이 풍부 사제냐와는 풍부 전부 내는 비게 제그리지 다디 준이리 그래 대체바 인자 다디 예 규티 예 가르쳐 그랬다 믿음이 줄이 제바 요 말이 내용이 줄 제바 인자 티 다가데 믿음이 줄이 제바 믿음이 줄이 제서는 변에 주 내다 녀몽게 온기 풍보대 안 비게 상미 풍보다지 제바 인자 믿음이 줄이 제용 거래 뒤와 말이 있어 거래 줄이 제바지 구리 줄이 제바 인에 믿음이 줄이 제바 요 말이 나란도 기타 사제냐 와렌비 풍보들랑 진짜라 아 국동에 되게디 나란도기 녀주 임바디 다디 춘이 거의 춘이 거란게 나도기 춘이 임바도 될래 요답도 게디요 말이지 녀주리 되네 동에 나도 송거야 동에 나도 송거야 돼야 아니 비게지 디 그랬을다 동에 동속이 비게지 일도 붙이 봐 수윤이 대달 년보 이거 본다고 제 통고고야 했다. 년보 이거 본다고 동에 대달 년보 그래요나. 동에 대달 인중공으로 때 간대 지금 인중도 센티 바제 고마히고요 아래. 동에 대달 인중공 때 간대 연구도 센 송고에는 동에 대달 인중공 때 레드 녀모버니래 연구도. 레드 녀모버니 그 낭내 땅 아니 피게지 녀모래 연구도 마차야지. 녀모네 연변 낭내 장다 타토버지 야야 때르기나 주단딜이야 통도지 도 대가리 제비나 다디 규디 지 매버지 마소비나 안다 단다 평제 나랑도 저발 통마 유생게 요래 통마 매생게 요래 다만자 그지 통마 매생게 저발 통마 매 디네 디펜젤 심전 요 말이 디춘제 심전 요 레스전 비 해동야게 비 타투야죠 말 타마요 말이 그 통매 타는 요 말 타마요 아리 타마요디 가르치는 심전 랑랑게 인피게지 상집이 투시비지리 남식절 심지 탐지 상집이 티체 아니 비게지 거기 비 타는 분도 조버리 있으니 디리 순거야 디리 제가 인상 다 주들 년일 또 내년에 단딜 또 인상 주들라지 년보 요바지 송여러 왔다 년보 저때 그 다같이 NPK 나란도 이제 막 봉동도 쉬부지 자체 고등학교 쉬부지 또 이제 둘이야 개요 말이 대고 희외 김명남디 군 딘당디디 이 나란도 다든 좀 맞대 딘당디 대미유도 떨그래 대미유도 봐 방에 당전이 야안도는데 희바야 시상 전에 도그러 봐 디제다 아니 비게지 다디 뒤디 제제고요 알다 알아서 동에 나속만 막고 휴송아 되네 내가 막 착반에 송대 비게지 소체 다에 꼬라자주라 소제 야자와는 야 디파드데 그게 관계 디 뒤디 제제 다 주래 연이 또 레드 뭐니 다들 토브레세 봐 가르쳐 단딜 토브 제제네 아니 대 가르쳐 때 대체 그 송도한데 소설도에 시랍지 애니페 야니 야도 제 금버 자오 송도가 다 탄dom으로 때 소설도에 시랍지 봐제금 아니 비게 제 로야 림베 지상지야 따는 로고고요 아래 sen 어디 송고요 아래
So the whole purpose of discussing and reflecting on any kind of suffering, including the suffering of birth, is to be able to understand the nature of life in samsara or cyclical existence, and understand that there is a way out. There is another choice. We don't have to do this over and again, as we have done, countless times. This cycle can be broken, if you will, if you choose to. That's the whole purpose of talking about this suffering, not because we have nothing better to do. He didn't say that, but and so when we really invest, that means we have to investigate, what are the causes of our life in samsara. That even when we think about being born from the womb of the mothers, which is one way of being born in samsara, what are the deeper causes and conditions, if you will? Yeah. So when we, in search of that, investigate, so what we see is, as a matter of fact, we come to see that our contaminated karmic actions and afflictive emotions or the delusions are the real culprits here, isn't it? The way you and I have been reborn over and again in samsara is just because of contaminated karmic actions and afflictive emotions or the delusions. Okay? And it is as if we don't know any other way of being born. So this is how this vicious cycle has been perpetuated for countless times. And of these two primary causes, contaminated karmic actions and delusions, the delusions are actually much deeper. Okay? And delusions are innumerable, as you know. Okay? But then again, we will go down through, is there only one delusion that's the real culprit? Then that's why, in our reflection and meditation, we come to see that it is our grasping at self. Tenzin in Tibetan, self-grasping is the source of all kinds of suffering in samsara. Okay? And so we come to realize that. And then we said, okay, if grasping at self is the real source of, samsara, or going round and round and round in samsara, well, is there any other antidote, right? Any antidote that is effective to uproot this grasping? And as we have talked a lot over and again, that there is one, because this grasping of self cannot be destroyed by weapons of mass destruction. Well, that's he said it. I didn't make that up. Okay, this cannot be destroyed by any ammunitions or any technological warfare tools and gadgets. It just could only be destroyed through the training of the mind. And what we really see here is that grasping itself distorts all our perceptions about the world, isn't it? We are looking at the world in a way that it does not exist. We fabricate how everything actually exists, and then we get stuck with it. We think, this is it, okay? This is how I see it, and this should be, this is why I see it, because I'm so important, But now when we look from the other side, from the perspective of selflessness or something, then we say, what? Wow, things exist in a very different way than we perceive them to exist. So by cultivating the wisdom, understanding selflessness, we can uproot this grasping. Once that happens, okay, then happy day starts. Oh, he didn't say that, but I have to wake you up too, so I have to sing sometimes, the translator. So what we are trying to defeat here as a spiritual practitioners is this grasping at self. Okay, this is the real source of all our suffering and misery in samsara, including the suffering of the birth and all the things we have been talking about, And So way to deal with that is by cultivating the wisdom, realizing selflessness, and by promoting all the positive states of mind within our mind, that we are able to exit samsara. We're able to get out of samsara. Then we can find a better way of being reborn. We don't have to be under the control, the freaking control, as we'd say, of contaminated karmic actions and delusions. We will be really free at last. And do that. So that's why towards the end of page 275, there's this powerful, really kind of concluding statement. Therefore, as explained before, you should repeatedly, you meaning us, investigate them with discerning wisdom, means analytical wisdom, and meditate on them. So we have to use analytical meditation, analytical wisdom to be able to probe, this nature of life and suffering in samsara. What's the real cause of the suffering, and how can we defeat it? How can we destroy it completely by cultivating the wisdom, realizing selflessness, and by cultivating all other positive states of mind. So that is the bright future. There is a way out. We don't have to go through all this, foul-smelling, vicious cycle, roundabout go in samsara. We can have a happy way to be born. And so as relating this to what I said earlier about is things do not arise without causes and conditions. And our contaminated aggregates, our physical body, is a result of contaminated karmic actions and delusions. Contaminated karmic actions and delusions cannot produce uncontaminated, enlightened bodies, what we call, because then that would be discordant factors, isn't it? How can be a great result come out of such a weird, cause and it's just not in the law of nature, because our being in samsara, the way we have been going through, is perfectly according to the law of the nature. Contaminated karmic actions and delusions, you get pain and suffering, and you get all the headaches, and that's what it is. It's in the law of nature. If we don't want that, we have to create another cause and conditions which will also work perfectly as in the law of nature, that we will be able to have freedom from samsara. We can also have pure enlightened bodies. When that happens, that's the end of the bad story, isn't it? Until then, of course, we can debate about that. Is there beginning to samsara, life in samsara or not? Because some says yes, some says no. But majority seems to say that there is no beginning to our life in samsara. So we cannot find the origin, but there is end to life in samsara. The end could only come if we make efforts and we free ourselves from samsara. So once we attain nirvana or complete enlightened state, that's the end. That's the happy ending there. Okay. Bones.
Oh yeah. That also to be here up the and the jet, Gumbercha, was it? That gum said, gum sing it, gum sing it, or another gum sing it. Chetan any deleted Gumbalangela, Tubanian or Toko. Too young here up in the one Toko. Sevinta and around to anything about lumbering cinema, Tunga, Tunga, Tota Tunga, but someday any beginning Yelling, Pungo, thing to any beginning. Tunga, that is some need to be Tubaki here up in one to go. Here up the water Mason Bala, any theatre the Tati to make it duty Canadian to do. Duty Meva sort of country and Jenny. Something we hear up the own to go marry. Tito on a combat skin, Tati Candidacy now. Tell a combat skin, any some young thing you take a Jebanagi, or that some young hear up thing you take a Jebanani. Countries take do. Come, Medimbe Julie Market on the part Lodong and Bando. Come, Jamil can get on the lot. That Julie Java Hirishani and Judy says in the next some young hear up in the Onkuari. Some young hear up the annual point to and Bonjong thing a day. Likuari. What day? Yes, I am big, some young thing a day. Tang a pet Huvina, some young hear up in the Kalesi or Sana. Some young hear up in the Natu Chulba jail, you can jail Lamgaina. Chul jail Lamgaina, and Tomat in the Tamil jail, you are married. Jay, you such a two good at it. Fully nothing to something big today on Pali today. Pull Pali Pechandua, Pali Pechani, Pali, the touching to Pali Tony, Pigate, Chankoya, some young sort of city. 아니 드네르 제디 때도 럽인디 갑갑을 빨리 때 갑갑을 빨리 달만 단대 기그럽지 가신디도 기탈라 때베게 지네게 스테이지 장이 될 삼종식이리 단 남책질라 아니 이게 계기는데 빨리 되는데 될 싸워니니 또 메고봐 또 메고봐 아니 랑기 피게 제 땀니 제 토바이 될 공종식이리 공종기 로스기리 검중다 검신이 부디 대해서 가가요 아래 검 자인지 얘기했는데 지금 봐인도 인지나 얘기 즉 봐인도 검중 걸로스니 지금 단단 그두삼 갈다 삼중 아니 두중 삼중 검중세야 지금 히랍tum디 그게 지금 로당 되게 검세야지 가르쳐 그래 검중 걸로스야 돼 검니 가가인 버래 검라 검중게 로인베 잡기와 말이 검중게 로라 검인베 잡기와 말이 근데 삼중 모치고 검망고 싫어요 말이 저도 관계돼 아니 비게돼 검중게 로게 말이 검중게 좋아 말이 검중 말이 검중이나 야야 비게 제 검인베 잡아요 말이 라르도 받점 된데기 줄차 잡이나 다 엉봉 같은 줄 옹시긴가부 들어가지고 검기 두중다 삼중다 검중기 혈압기 탄이 지금 말이 들려요 말이 옹봉 같더라 제 검기 탄이 지금 말이 대체 인도 발에 아니 그게 또 봤던 좀 된데 줄이 나네 그게 제 옹보 시발 현배 이기 시발던 수 관계 가리 있나다 제 검중글로 인식이래 검중글로 인식이래 맞죠 저 검이 인식이요 말이 검이 또 봤던 좀 된데 검 매스요 봐 검이요 말이 그 매일 흔들지 사진련이 추자르킨도 매매 똑방가 말았어요. 그러다 비게지 쇼송바이 나인다. 거리 나인다. 공부시고야 각해지 검대하고야 공부시고야 각해요 말이 완전 날 사바탄 번나히 콜론스케 거야 요 말이 사진련이 추자르킨도 매매 똑방가 말았어요. 디세르 세다야지 검세야 되다. 검종기 시반이부터 때치기 제발요 알이디. 제발 놓아 돼 제발 놓아 제대로 야 검도 검중 시반이 통화책도 제비나 야티 때든 되게 말해 되게 말 티제 제다 근데 뭐 시럽 숨근 도단티 되지지 다 단지 빼주면 단신기 이니 비게 진행을 가르쳐는 계기나는데 될 뛰었다 타직도 뛰었다 감 가르쳐 메뛰었다 타직도 메뛰었는데 숨 요바 나신기 땀 도망가던 데에 맞동야 년례 풍부된데 아니 메다도 메동 담이 tun이나 당부티 메다동에 동 담이 팅이 저기 동백이 농적을 떠고 가대 특히 그 단이 인데 전에 메다생인데 동 담이 인데 신 간데지 틀려야 돼 대삼중 그 소리지 삼중 쨘 아니 다 가르치도 돼 메다생이 가르 동 담이 신 인데 전에 쟤쟤니 제발로 보지 쟤니 진짜 삼중 깊게 내시야 니네 다티 삼중기 대갑도 애니 비게지 메다비 임바도 보지 배지를 또 뒤또부터 지화학도 돈지투지도 만도 무슨도 또요 말이 돈지투지 인데신 또 볼때 삼중 소리지 다티야 로데야 금베야 금니야 독리도 발라 아니 메다 단다 돈지투지 또 송아 다 단답지 야야야 로데야 금미도 발라 메다도 무슨도 또 보지 차는 거야 이 사람아 메타부터 공숨도 또지. 대공숨도 또 봤지. 다디 검종생이도 토바리 혈압 숨기 나니 검종기 혈압이 토바리. 어리 어디 시그러지.
As you may recall that in Buddhism we often talk about threefold approach to study and practice. So that's why often we talk about three types of wisdom. Wisdom arising through listening to teaching, wisdom arising from contemplating the meaning of the teaching, wisdom arising from deep meditative experiences. Okay, and all of these things are sequentially, sequenced. What comes first is the listening, which involves study. Okay. And so it is in this regard that whatever we want to meditate on, that first we have to educate ourselves about the subject matter. And in a traditional sense, it is either we are listening, receiving teachings like this, right, based upon authentic texts and treatises. So we develop the knowledge, understanding of the topic. Okay? And then once we have the understanding, then we engage in contemplation. The Tibetan term is called samba. So by engaging in deep thoughts and contemplation, we are able to really get the clarity of the meaning in our mind, and we can discern the meaning more clearly, isn't it? So that might involve a lot of analytical meditation, not simply like, zoomed out or something. It's just like thinking a lot. Why not? Why yes? How? Whatever. All this, just analysis we have to do. So once through analytical thinking, we have discerned whatever the meaning, clearly and correctly, unmistakably, now we can familiarize our mind more and more with it, and then we develop really deeper insight and realization. That comes through meditation, isn't it? So the wisdom arising through meditation. So those three things are in proper sequence: listening, contemplation, and meditation, not any other way around. Okay, so that's very important for us to think about. That, for example, when we deal with our own contaminated aggregates or the truth of suffering. The truth of suffering has four characteristics, isn't it? We talk about, we can talk about impermanence, we can talk about misery, we can talk about emptiness, we can talk about selfless, isn't it? Whatever, because these are the things we have to probe deeply, right? The realities. And so let's say we are going to meditate on the impermanence of our body. Okay. First, we learn about it. We read, Dharma books. We listen to teachings. We really try to understand what does impermanence mean. Then, to be able to, clarify that meaning in our mind, and to be able to be sure about its meaning, we have to contemplate a lot. We think a lot. We analyze it. And so, through that analytical process, when we become very sure this is it, and now we are going to deeply meditate on that. And we might gain what we call the deeper realization, insight into impermanence. Okay. And so the example Khensur Rinpoche has given is just like, even he's just, his mind went back to good old Tibet. If somebody wants to learn how to swim, okay, well, you don't know a thing about swimming, clueless person, right? So somebody who knows, is going to explain, Okay, so what do you really need to prepare your mind? And, once you're in the water, how should you start, learning about how to swim? So that's all about education. It's like listening to the instruction, isn't it? Okay. And then, of course, the good instructor is not just simply going to throw you into the water, because that would be a problem, right? It's going to help you, right, to float on the surface of the water, right? You may not be able to do that at all. You're just going to sing in, and he'll pull you out, and you just put it on. You're just going to sing it. So in Tibet, we used to use the plank of wood, right? So at the end of the one plank, the instructor might hold it. The other one, you hold it. So you're going to flip your limbs, whatever, right? You're just going to, and that's how you are taught. Okay. So this practice, listening to the instruction and try to implement it, just like analytical meditation, Okay. So as you get better with it, so sometimes you need to hold on to that. Other times you can let go free and flip, do flip, few more, like flapping yourself independently, and then hold on to it, right? And through this process, then you really learn how to be a good swimmer. So once you know how to swim, you don't need to depend on anybody, is it? You don't need to go with your instructor. You don't know the plank of the boat. You just can enjoy your swim. That's like a meditative state, Now you're very skilled things. Okay? So obviously, he knows in the West, you have many wonderful, tools to teach how to swim. So like that. So first we listen to teaching or instruction on a topic, try to form the correct understanding, the right understanding. Then we use our analytical, critical intelligence to do the analytical meditation, analyze it deeply. Okay? So once we have succeeded in that, then we can meditate on it, and we gain direct insight into the nature of thing. So when we have a direct insight into the nature of thing, that is what we call wisdom arising through meditation. Okay? So what happens is, first we are clueless, then we know something about impermanence, and then we analyze it and analyze and analyze it. We have what we call the conceptual understanding, deep understanding of impermanence. Okay? And then through meditation, we remove the conceptuality, the generic image of that. So we don't want any mediation between our experience and the reality, right? We just, want to click. So through that process, when we directly see the truth as it is, whether it's impermanence, emptiness, that is the wisdom arising from meditation. So it is a process we have to go through, isn't it? Okay? And this process applies to anything we study and do. So as Khensur Rinpoche was trying to differentiate between Gom, meditation, and Kumjungi law, wisdom or thoughts arising through meditation. Those are not one and the same thing. Okay. So for example, in a very technical sense, when we debate about this, our historical teacher Shakyamuni Buddha, okay, I mean, he has the wisdom that has arisen from meditation. Okay, I mean, his mind sees the truths as they are, nakedly and non-conceptually. But he's not meditating. See that? He's free of meditation. It's a spontaneous thing. Just like when the cumulus clouds built in and rain will come down. That's in the law of nature, right? Because of his enlightened mind, that he sees things effortlessly and clearly, unlike us. Okay? So he is not meditating, but yet he has the wisdom that has arisen through meditation. Whereas you and I are probably need to meditate, struggle it, and to be able to reach that same goal. Okay.
Oh. 세상 다티네 그래서 얘네 꿈을 자오지 다 가베 둥이 생기 가분도야 가베 둥이 때 가베 둥이 때 나란도게 지대래야 탄이 뒤에 니가 다티 깬거 진도 때 로형 진도 때 이는 비게 다르간 진도 세야기 탄이 죽사치도가 뒤 깬거 되게 하래 야 가베 둥이 될 때는 애니 깨tam니네 가베 둥이 진도 때 간데 있는 상그라 봐야 때 말이 때 가도 믿어 버려. 뭐 듣고 말와. 때봐 니네 가베 등에 고뚝 버든 가도 뭐 듣고요 말이. 다당 가도야 로야 첨부천이 야되게 경고기 단다디 동에 경고 동에 해야 돼. 가도 홍보유도 균네. 뭐 되게 동에 쓰여야 돼. 뭐 듣고 믿어 가도. 근데 니매 공연 나와 피에 니마트 까마튼도 연애 가도 뭔가 믿어 와. 까마 여대 여래 돼 가도 니매 어떻게 신진이네 너 그런게 만두게 홍보유도 유튜브가 말이 원투가 말이 몸바파 롬도 스테 토리 쟤는 원유도 와 어떤 하신게 아니 로청도 그게 가빈 것도 뚝뚝 요아리티 얘네 때담지 원톱도 요 말이 근데 야야야야야 롤리인데 아니 원투가 다 야야리인데 다 홍보유도 주네 소소 관계 이 준이리 연주리 감옥을 때 루브티 신동에는 가시마도 대 강고 제니티 뇽주리 티 동에 되게 뇽주리 마도지기 이 밑에 동계 수지요 말이 어디 제단이야 다 단지 이게 제 때문에 내가 뭐부터 갑리야 가위 동에 직 transong 양 단다티 가위 동에 제티 디레지 고도 될티 때문에 내가 라니 가위 동에 용 디레기 내가 용 두고 말을 봤잖아 어디서 명문벌이 맞도 요아래 티네
So we are on page 275 at the bottom. The caption reads, "The suffering of old age." Okay, and so this is something, as I said before, visible to one's own eyes and to the eyes of other people around. Okay, what I said earlier was the second moment of our birth, the process of aging, has already started. Okay. But it is invisible to us, and we don't realize it. So that's why nobody talks at that stage. Oh, you're too old. That would be crazy. Oh, you're so cute and so young and whatever. But the process has already started then. It's just invisible to us. It's just like during the day we don't see the moon. Well, moon is there. It's just that we couldn't see it. Well, at night when the sun goes home, then the moon comes out. Now oh, there is the moon. Yeah, so like that. So when we go through our life and reach a stage where everybody recognizes you as an old or senior or what's the other words people have been using me? Okay, I forgot that. Doesn't matter. So that is we call the visible, old age. So that's what people said. Oh, there's an old man. There's an old woman. There are and then we have all those other unkind words. Talk about them. Right? Let's not go there. Yeah. So that is a recognition that we have reached a stage in our life where things are starting to become much more difficult, isn't it? And so that's again we need to think about. It's a part of life. Nobody can really say I don't want that part of my life unless you die before you become old. Well, that seems like an exception to the case. Otherwise, everybody has to go through that. And we all have the shared experiences, what it means, what kind of things we go through in our advanced age.
세비인상다 대세 효과지 다 가위 동에서야지 내 맛이 인도 양 낭지기 돼야 사제 나를 시기도 와 내도 앞에서 잡이날도 와 동에 등알에 숙성보 용서 냠반이 있어야지 땅에 날이 찍이 버려봐 방구 숙성보 기라 요래 다때 기라야 우시요래 다들 냠로 그래야지 냠반에 개바 있는 휴터 곡바다 개바 고그레도도 미스 나 소포청주 예서로 들으시라 그바 그거 말이 갈갈 코라 구야 히라 야께요 말이야 걔 매비인도 막 구야 히라 요 말이 미카샤 가게 야 뭐 쳐볼 들으셔도 다 개용도 아니 코바 고그르마도 다 잡았다 이미 미케야 가게 이길때 지당시는 도당들 제도가 막 구야 고고도가 깨바 휴들 고바 휴선은 난속게 데려왔단 다 자야게 휴지 여러와 꼭 향게 고그지가 될 휴지기라와 깨바 휴들 करता खूब आता गोटे में तो गोटे में के बाद उधर खूब आता गोटे में तो दरवाजे शामदे लोटे तो मैं तब तेरे में तो दर कावाता तेवा ठेजे तर ये में खेंग बाय सोची ने लंग 냠네 동에 봐오 아데데 낭지기데 내가 테니스도 와데 깨바 휴들 खूब 째째 템바라 와테테 락바터리 간도 통두고 야사티 개비 동에 테 간도 통두고 락바터다 간도 비게 쩨마타 그 가레 동에서 해야 돼 간도 다다 다와단 까말 빼샤브나 히리 옹투고 야말 칼레칼리 심바르 본도 다다 간도 옹스에 전부 되려 왔다 경고 뒤에 옹게 전부 되려 왔다디 간도 기 가비 동에 락바터 가비 동에 달라야 타라 야초고 야래 가비 동에 비게 쩨담니네 가비 동에 야 저저 적다 얘네 야 개구야 개비차네 다 가비 등에 때 락바들어와 제가 애니 티스기요 개바 휴들 고바탄 고테베 메도 따라 까바스탄 고까브레 용도와 따나고 있는 고까브레 용기와르테 때와 제대 따라 애니 예메 큰바 소지 애니 랑도 냠비 동에오 때와 제대세도 볼리나 야들이 이 샤튼데 잡다 제대세기 될라 배기 시로지 디와리 제대세도 발 직탁가리 마치 sapsak 인데 지 sapsak 데 리모트 오브 시부지 도용아 어디스기었다 제때에 미도세야 된 가란도 볼 때와싱 지어다 아디 인기성 때와싱 있어 때에 미도 나도 볼 직자야 요래 맨다 직자야 요래 가몽가모 미톤돌 비자면다 될 때와싱이 지 도직제 자직제 안티 버리테 때와싱 인데세네 메다 일리용 그래 뒤때와디 토소나 네 매팅 바뀌어야 제도 되게 로마티 애니 피게틱 까보이 버 까보 이렇게 제 대백게 샤브를 맞춰줄 로마 까보 인게다 망보 요아봐 다 빼지 그래 봐 제가 뒤 까보 이때 메도 달까봐 때와서야 돼 어디 이 잘라 들수기여서 등간도 파피 인텔 제조데 제도 이제 제요 이 메다 제도 제 가란도 탈락잡도 맨다 추도 자 등도 메다 될 랭기로 어디스기여 근데 동에 요아래 에스기여래 어디 송으로나
So the suffering of old age is presented under 5 subpoints, if you will. The first one is says, a handsome body deteriorates. Okay, so one could be very handsome, beautiful, attractive in a young age. Okay, so at that stage it becomes once upon a time I was, the storyline, So now the body is really, body has morphed into some other kind. So then, you started to bend down more. And Khensur Rinpoche says somebody like him, which is kind of short, so maybe has advantage, doesn't bend down. But if you're too tall, you will bend down, And maybe it's not for every case, Of course, there will be some probably they beat all these odds. But many of us probably go through that, So your, I should say, body bends down like the bow, right? Like a bow. And your hair, the head is like the hair turns very gray and white, just like that flower. I don't know whether it's really flower. According to his description, he said in old days, they have that like a very archaic form of a rifle, that needs, some cake powder, and then it needs something to kind of start the mesh, So it makes some kind of color, white color there. So when you strike the mesh there, then it can fuse, and then there's a blast, So your hair will be as white as that, white powder, let's say, Okay, so now I know where I am. My hair's getting old. Then the wrinkles appear on the forehead, just like it says the lines of a cutting board, Well, I think we've got better at, designing those things, so maybe they don't show wrinkles anymore. Well, at least not the ones in my kitchen. But in Tibet, yes, we use the wooden cutting board. When you have cut so much, there's so many lines, so your wrinkles are like that on the cutting board, unappealing. So these are, of course, this is a part of the nature, you might say, but these are the characteristics you started to see very visible, at that stage of life. No.
this is that in Ngasen Sumdi Sidua.
No.
That to Yambani sing to Pejinal. To Yambani, do not yet a Chebatan Java. Langa any piggy sing it tower, Namdun Tombatan Javatan. Any piggy mena, the Gitty Kaya Tatapu Menge, the Legic Sumji Young Race. That I'm doing some Tongdoa. The Peja, Tetamgi, Teja, Radio, Mari, Hamakoya, Kay, Mari, Dick to it and don't let Jetta Cheb to do. Jamochikinala Sandra would you go to the looks on tea, keys and watch here or what? Tapaches on a career. Top to me is Zagreba. What they do in the school yard. Can go, they do do it. I think I'm doing young 20 at the rate. Jetta Cheb, and I can pay my chick. So when you go to which you sold to Mark, Yamri at your Jetta Cheb, is that it? Jetta Cheb, Langa Sing Tower Tagotan in Namlia. Sing Chabuji Tago Tanko, Tango about Tati, 10 Mato Tago, Chiraji, Tonto Marva, the Valley Labri, Metin, Tanshagava, Namanga in the pool to the 10 Kapoya in Brevata. Yatic Mini Kilagway, tiny destiny, Sing Pe Tago Tongan Naki Yashigu to Ati. Tating on to Tongdoa, Perangati, not a Landan, Petit, and I think Gavit to Neri. Then to me, to Contra, Akai, Tonla Yamale, so I'm missing part to Tia and over Dakar, Contra, the simply a children, Peng Mari, the junior. Yonjuri, they go let the new monkey piggy trip tab sugar, take junior, that piggy and a Kuyan cigarette. Can't the Kuyan body, simple day, take them in that up with your married, now in that up with your married. PG number 2 on the quite can get to the PG similarly. A cabinet cover to this area, and attack it to anything delivery. Taco Chuniri, sometimes get. Tell any pig, Tongan, Sunday could utilize Chico, sometimes the basic Jenny. The Tabina, some papa, Kuyambo. I remember that I can't run only Yama Younger do the Betu did the Chico, New London did the Chico, the same day land, which project to you in a Pento Chaya, Mari, did Tagaran Tigri. Yama Patu Tonal TV in a Raja, the Karasota, Shonshon as and get you bet that Chedrava, mix some maroon Chedra, the Pento Chaya, Mari, what you know, you touch you need about you need, not to you need it in the younger day. Tell somebody on the seat that you need it to the Kowana get chingelet and there on duty got not a cut and civil love to so you but you need it. I am in a uncle, category tonnet that they could utilize go raise some baby in it. I think Kuyang do up. Kuyang do your that. Yet chip the Sing Tower temper in Tombatan Tower. And then Mamma do well die. Start up your married Tagiti can go. That they rate that is not doing the or targeting over the data woman, Jubatama Menga, it is in Maridoa, okay, gave it the Natuya, gave it in it, data to the tone you are is.
We are on page 276, right on the top. The second point that's being made with regard to old age is physical strength and vigor deteriorate. In other words, the vitality of your body, is on decline here. And the description that's given here is you reach such a advanced age that, to be able to sit down is a problem. It is as if a sack of whatever heavy stuff is dropped down, because you didn't sit it properly. You just drop into your seat. Yeah? Or when you have to try to get up, you need so much exertion and help to be able to get up. And Khensur says, that's what you see me do every day, try to get up from a seat and everything. So that shows where I am, But that's part of the life, As we talk about these things, that also gives us this understanding that, well, I have reached this stage in my life, and this is a reality. That's something I need to accept, rather than try to fight against the reality, So as I was chuckling over it, and he said, maybe some people want to do cosmetic surgery or something, Well, people who know you, they know you're old. You just went through that, And I don't know how much really happiness that brings to you, because if you understand and accept the reality, that brings you so much, kind of a peace in your mind. Rather than worry about it, oh my gosh, I have too many wrinkles, where are the anti-wrinkle creams, aging, all of that. And oh my gosh, now these wrinkles even couldn't be dealt with the cream, now I need a surgery. And, you just go through all this angst about all the things you have to do. Well, maybe through that, kind of you look okay, but inside you still feel old, because you didn't, So that's the life stage, So rather than having to go through all that, like trials and tribulations about this, just accept it. Like, okay, I'm lucky to be here at this stage, and this is part of my life, and this is what it is. Everybody, has to go through that, So open our eyes to the reality and just be happy. Hakuna Matata. I'm just kidding. Now I really wake you up, huh? And so, as a practitioner, when we reach this kind of stage, really our main task should be, if I don't like these wrinkles, if I don't like the gray hair, I don't like being dropped like a sack, I don't want to be kind of pulled up like a tree, In old days, like you have a technology here, amazing, but in our days, like if you have to uproot a tree, so many people have to join hands, and like a tug of war, right? It requires so much effort, So if you don't like all of these things, then we should ask the more important, deeper question: what is the real cause here? That's how we go deep down to the grasping of self. Like, this is what I need to deal with, so that I don't have to do this over and again. Not do all the superficial and things on the top. It won't do much. No.
오다가 시작이 있어. 난 넘버도 돈이 제 권장한테 제가 가게 있는 돈나 까만 같기도. 다 현점 잡을때 다가 시작이 있어.
So we would like to stop there on page 276, right on the top. Point number 2 we just dealt with, and we would like to welcome your questions, observations, and things we need to clarify or anything.
Hello.
Yes.
So you were talking about the sequence of studying.
Mm-hmm.
So once you get to the conceptual understanding, I think
Right.
you said, you go into the meditative part.
Mm-hmm.
In order to conclude that meditative part, what exactly do you do in that? Because you already know and you're already convinced. So after that, what else is there?
Okay. Kuna condition the did the one. Tadanda Khensur je dekanami baganza tosam kom sum de rimbaji dogwa chero. Tango thebache ani sambache an sambaji kom gusla rowa. Ta sambachi de garya ne de garine ta chima chishinji hakko de yor wada. Sonda ro de hakko dan dila la an kom je de karir che ro sa thebarchi ta kom ja chero wa. La ta samde garya ko sonda de ser chimbere sonda de tangone chima chishi hakko de yor wa. An dila loss ro kom jam de karir chi ko sa ta kom karir chi ko.
레디디 데 시라기 테브라 요래 반나 담에 다바르버지 다치지 메타 제외 제르스티 통지 투지 지바스니 겐 통지 투지 또 되어버리나 대 꼼땀니 세나 체르 당부 통지만도 또 되어 말아 디네 세나 체르 로데 웅금대 웅 좋아 디세 아니 멈중게 생이도 토버리 근데 대양 아니 비게 꼼땀니야 제 탈투불은 타메디야 페니 타메디아 펜이 남바 탐제 집에 ngōngi ba mandu patu ya kumya yores tela te kebar tindes
Actually, there is a big difference between our experience in the contemplation stage and the meditation stage. Let's use again say impermanence is what we really want to deeply realize. So we study about it, and then we contemplate the meaning of impermanence very deeply. So at that stage, we might get a very, definite sort of understanding of the impermanence and quite a great clarity in our thinking, but still our understanding of the impermanence is very conceptual level, very intellectual, conceptual level. So through meditation, what we're trying to do is we are trying to remove this, the mediation, what we call the generic image that mediates our perception of the reality, impermanence. Yeah? So we don't want to understand it just conceptually. We want to see it as clearly as it is possible. So we want to see it what we call nakedly, directly, non-conceptually. So that's just where the meditation plays a very central role. That through meditation, through our power of familiarization, we remove more and more those conceptual images, mediating our experience. And when we directly see impermanence as it is, then we said that is the wisdom arising from meditation. Now maybe that's not even the end of the story, because we can still further it all the way to the omniscient state, where when we have removed all the delusions in our mind, then we can see all things non-conceptually. So that's the meditations, part. Yeah.
So in sorts, it's like removing the words.
Images of the, that's right. Yeah, the images. Because we are still at the conceptual level stuck with the imagery of the impermanence. However subtle it is, still there's some thin veil there. We don't see it, but we have to remove that veil. Yeah. No. Touch it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
It's on, I guess. Okay.
Yeah.
So you said samsara ends for enlightened beings, right?
Right.
But when enlightened beings return, they have to go through birth and the whole birth canal and aging and everything. So
Yeah.
how do we explain that?
Right. Sure. Tadaki Khensur Mijikana Dinambarwa, Koala Ya Tongma Yoma Les Labarwa, in a Tamayo Les, and a Tamacha and a San Yeveneta, Koal Tazobarusumbarwa. In a San Yeve Kibutamba de Yan Koala Yang Payungorwa. Pen energy, my and Marcus, Mangelia Pay Mata Pigorwa, Mark Ma Pay, and Yan Ya Talon can go such Gidoasa. That the Karishigorasa, the Candis Dishigawasa. Sang yes and a Marcovalia Pingorova, my name Marcena, Yak and Gocha Chigorova. Really, they say the Candis Yawarasa.
Oh, really? That is not it. The Nakachi Tita Yomari in a yata, PH Dujaki, a lot of Tamba. Ma people double. Tata Tombal Chayane, Ma P. Nazo and Randa. Rang Uta Rang seen it, PH, Rapid Chumia, Tenelo, Kawachea, Tine, any PH, Community, Young Barto, Sanjay, Twin everything, your is. I Sanjuk Sembaka here, Sanjay, the Sanjuk Sembasini, tell us Simjang Tomato Chia, your Maris. Simjang Tomato Chia, me do Simjang Tonti, take you pension about Bebel Cherry, the Jajumori, take Simjang Tonche. Hengi or Marais, Simjang Tonte, Chuton, any picket in Namsulani, Chuni Tambatambi, 2 Jerusalem, Chuton Ya, 2 Ramatuchilla, Ni Topahan, a poor man, the scene is Sungdoa. Or Chevy in the Tinde Tuya, your Tindema, T. Yoris, Impina, tell it so by Yoris. Combahita, Yabushi, till so by Yoris. Simja Tamja Sanjay, T. And the Lungu Kotibal, Sanjuk Simba Mintua. Kor Chansin Papa Shata, Jacob and Mindu. Something Papa Mindu, something Papa thinks Sim Jeraba. Something Papa Simjer, something Papa State, Salim Tabget, something Papa Sigra. Tonto Simjeri, take an Lungu to the Olympic Court to any Pigati, Lungutini can do Nibangan so good Taduk Sigare. Nibanga can call something Papa Shata, you call about Jack Tang, the thing to give me to Patu Java Yori. In the ass in some chain teeth. Simche Tamje Saji have a teeth, Lungu Cormenia, and PH, John Messi and the Bugita, 좀 답이야 되게 요리 알아봐 이제 톡바티 요리 땡땡 톡바티 요리니 그게 심지 상제버 대대 에 니게 전부에 미유미도 미과 심지 삼제를 믿는 남바틴 비게지 동에 텐도 자와 텐데 민도와 그전 되게 저바 망보 요리 되나 디 차신이 제 지치기 요리 다 힘이 타와기 신삼 등에 하 먹고 진정 야고 이게리 뜻을 여기 되게 더봐 요리 인베이나야 심쟁 돈도 마 가르쳐라 피버티야 심쟁 돈데 장주 셈바통도 퀄리티에 제벌 주 부동으로 속받아 좀응압죠 좀못 망보 부동으로 속받다 게 근데게 있는 피게 템베 자와친 게게 야 용바친이 고바 대익치리 마 비교하래
얘네 권한서 건전 내시 동행 연구 잡아요 말어.
요 말아 동에 시대 요 말아 다 삼기 시발 렘바다 레는 남바 디제시 다 삼신도 시바 말 랭게 알마도 디 시바 때와 템베 주제데 나도 녀모기 비게 나진기 단단 나도 녀모 레드 녀모 데 녀모라 티 마임바 티 마임신 수바자요 근데 레스 송로지 삼기 시발 렘바다 레는 남바 디제 코랑기 마자와 렌지 주제시 겨래 데 녀모 나도게 다다티 레드 녀모게 다다 한지 공시에다지 삼자야 된데 많이 쓴게 이거래.
So Khensur Rinpoche just quoted from his memory a stanza which basically substantiates the point that in the case of enlightened beings, the Buddhas, coming back to samsara to work for sentient beings, so they may, go through the same process, but they don't experience the pain and suffering that we go through. For example, our historical teacher Shakyamuni Buddha, right, different perspectives. According to the Mahayana perspective, when he appeared in our world, we said he manifested, and so he enacted all those roles, like he performed 12 deeds that looks like any conventional roles, the performances, but himself as a Buddha enlightened being, even though he was born from mother, not really from the womb actually, they don't go through the same suffering. The reason is because their birth is by choice and by their motivation, not dictated just like us by contaminated karmic actions and delusions. So they just said, hey, where should I be most helpful? I'm going to go there, right? So they make choices. So therefore, in the literature, they talk about different type of karma and 8 different causes which help them to come back and help. And that's why, sometimes bodhisattvas and high-level bodhisattvas, we should say, and the Buddhas, at times and they come and they become universal king, Chakravartin Raja, and maybe they have so many, kids, they raise them, all of those things look like exactly like we're doing, but it's a different experience, so for them. So that's what, but what you said is, Khensur Rinpoche said, is very good. We have to keep thinking about all different options and things like that. Because in the monastic debate, for example, we say that, okay, one of the things is, what happens when all sentient beings become Buddhas, right? No sentient being left. Okay, because that is a possibility we theorize, isn't it? Everybody has a Buddha nature, and one day everybody will become Buddha. So we have to posit a day will come that everybody is Buddha and no ordinary sentient being left. Then the interesting questions and the debate is it possible to generate great compassion? Because great compassion is a state of mind wishing others to be free of suffering. Now, who is suffering anymore, right? Everybody is Buddha now, right? So all those kind of things are debated, in monastic. So what you asked reminded him of such things they debate in monastic culture. No. Thank you very much. And so with that, I would like to request you to put into your analytical meditation and practice what I have shared as much as you can. So first we are going to do Manjushri prayer in Tibetan, and then also quick written prayer for Lhasa Rinpoche in Tibetan, and then in English and Vietnamese.
다소 진예사베 개완데 단단로와 군라 감변단 제버지수 로상 잡바이 덴베 닝보렘도 세지쇼
라마도 공부지 전장배 양로 차즈로 강게 로제 진예 된데 인다 남다 라세베 진예 두고 지신 세제 니제 토가 레반데 강다 세베 저라 민동 동에 예세베 로조 군라 보제 다제 영화 주주 yang den song ro da che do nyu mo ni le je cha do zhe ze chen ma re min se dong yen nyu ho ji nie chun ze re yuan nian da jie sa ju da zhe yuan dian lun zo jia ze tu yu gu ju zha ju da lu min zhen jiang bei yang lan du o ma ra ba zhen na di 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 现天确切见了为是言道律天目明白了三年，高大天爵雄龙多宝，六者宝贝难忘这都说。电把年门跟着水上在路中头面，边州注定上地方高了要接中高华，点点给来这边别的。长久宁波西北雄狼街，南大水电松街来着。南大区界娘道这边边，帮的拉面小郎说话，区的这边给了来当的，娘道如果这边心结，上万里面连着老中边，路上养点别别别多，你妈妈也让他去的边，有个没事动画地光了，也在别在很多些，养着身上别多牛肉肉。Manjushri prayer. Okay, this one has no. Okay, I'll start from he who has. Okay, yeah. He who has the intuitive wisdom that disperses the clouds of the two obscurations, like the sun shedding a glorious light that is utterly pure. He who understands all meanings whatsoever, of perfect realization, from whose heart emerges the lotus holding the books of the perfection of wisdom. Those who live in samsara are the prisoners of ignorance, afflicted by the darkness of suffering, looking after all sentient beings with compassion, like a mother looking after an only child. You have a melodious voice of 60 tones. Roaring like a dragon, you wake people from the sleep of conflicting emotion, freeing one from the iron shackles of karma, dispelling the darkness of their ignorance. Thus you wield the sword which cuts down the shoots of suffering, primordially pure, having reached the 10 bodhisattva level, the perfect body of highest qualities, the foremost son of the Buddhas, adorned with 112 ornaments, major and minor physical perfections of a Buddha. I bow down to you, Manjushri. Please dispel the darkness of my mind. Om Arabhazanadi. I beseech you with the loving kindness of your omniscient light rays to completely dispel the dark ignorance of my mind, thus giving me the intellectual courage and intelligence to understand the teachings of the Buddha, their elucidating treatises and commentaries. O peerless savior and supreme teacher Shuddhodana's son, O the 17 masters and adepts, Nagarjuna and Asanga and so on, O Dipamkar as well as Sovereign Father Tsongkhapa, gloriously appear here to auspiciousness. On the great path leading to the heart of enlightenment, you have traversed by means of the perfect threefold discipline, and have enhanced ever higher the realizations of the enlightened qualities. O glorious Guru, we offer our supplications at your feet. Pray return gloriously to propagate the teaching of Lobsang by tying well the sash of monastic disciplinary precepts and generating the altruistic intention to free all beings. Engage in the tantric yogas of the 2 stages. Think of the unbearable pain of the sentient beings who are enveloped in the forces of 5 degenerations, and open wide the lotus grove of the Buddha's teachings. May your reincarnation appear soon as a source of merit for us. Ro Lai Pai Hui Ba Bang Tu Ve Bo Di Han Chen Tong Su Quan Vin Tu Cheng Ting Te Go Lai Hus Cho Ma Cho Lai Kong Ve Fen Ba Bab Lop Sang Bang Su Da Che Dai Go Ngim Ming Teng Tu Tu Vin Ro Lai Ko Tam Tu Bi Dai Nguyen Ka Tai Chung Sang Ting Chung Hen Ti Du Kai Men Min Di Mang Chung Dap Cho Ma Thong Dung Thong Ru Ba Kong Thông Phi Bố Phụ Cháu Đời Con Người Mắng Được Nước Tước Đồ Đê Rống Mọi Bán Ngày Vĩnh Sẵn Gã Lại Phạt Thái Trớ Mô Tánh Sẵn Ghê Vô Đê Như Rô Tenzin yang zo ye xia bei si de pa do ten ju ye de ma lu ru ran na ma de la go ni ya da ya mi